All right. How is everybody doing this evening? How is everybody doing this evening? Hopefully, wonderful. So this is the live recording of episode 3 of this webinar episode 3 of this brand mastery webinar series, brought to you by me and my friend Josh, over at Rav is the game. And if you guys don't know me, my name's Corey, and I'm the founder of Champion Circle Enterprise, and we lead people and businesses forward with knowledge, clarity, and direction on branding. And we are having our special guest here today, Miss Teaira Abston, and she is the founder of Creative, wait, Dreamcatcher Creative Studio. I'm a little nervous, but I'm getting the jitters out. You know how it is. Why don't you go ahead and let everybody know a little bit about you?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. My name is Teaira Abston. I'm the owner of Dreamcatcher Creative Studio, which is a branding and design firm that specializes in helping women-led entrepreneurs create cohesive brand presence online. So that's basically helping you with brand strategy for your business, but then also implementing that strategy into visuals. So that's why I'm super excited about the topic today. I know people go straight to the visuals, so it's such a good topic to have today.
Yes, absolutely. So my first question for you, just to kind of break the ice here, is what do you define as branding? What does branding mean to you as a professional in the space?
To me, I would say branding really is like the perception that you're trying to create in the minds of the consumer. So the perception of
Mhm.
like your company, the perception of your services, whether they're like products or services like one to one or group coaching. I think it's just the perception that you're creating.
Mm,
And that's created from a number of things, but holistically, I
right.
think that's what branding is.
Okay, that's what's up. That's what's up. So I'm very similar in that regard. So I'm thinking like the goal of branding is really to kind of establish relationships and build a rapport with a specific segment or industry,
Yeah.
that would allow you to scale your visibility and eventually generate more sales for your business.
Yes.
I think branding is definitely a long game, and I think that's why it's overlooked. You know, what I mean,
Yes.
like people believe that branding is just a 1-2 type of situation, and it
No.
really is not. It's really not. It's not
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
not even close. Not even close. Not even close.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And just just general chatting here. So how was your week? Did you have any wins this week?
Well, I had a good week. I This week was kind of a step back from the grind, so I kind of took a step
Okay,
back, got my breath because I've been really, really busy.
I
Um,
believe it.
I just went through like a brand shoot for myself, a video shoot, so
Okay,
like a promo
okay,
video, and then I also did a big speaking engagement like right after that. So I'm
okay. You've
like,
been on a
okay,
run.
let me breathe. So this week was
Yeah.
like calm. I'm
Nice.
prayerful. I'm thankful, but just
Right.
excited to have a break. But also just trying to rest. And I've been a little under the
Right.
weather, but it's kind of in alignment because I've been running, so I figured
Yeah.
it was coming.
I hear that. I hear that.
Yeah,
My wife, she
yeah.
having those senses as well.
Yeah.
My week was pretty strong so far. Today was my 30th day, so closing out my first month at my new job.
Oh,
I also
congrats.
received I received my little pin today with my name tag and stuff. So I'm like, okay, I'm feeling legit, you know. So that was
Okay.
super cool. That was super cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Super cool, man. All
It's
things
always
branding, how we
exciting.
present ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting when you start something new. So I'm sure that's like you're jumping in, you're learning everything. So prayerful
Yes,
that it
yes.
stays exciting, right? And that you love it, the
Facts.
people that you work with, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. That is so true. We're going to talk about that as well today. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. We got through the introduction, so let's go and talk about the difference between branding and marketing. Some of the similarities I would say is definitely both have something to do with manipulating someone's perspective.
Yes.
Influencing how they perceive our business, our brand, our services, etc. And what's your take on the similarities? What are something similar that you think that they are having in common, branding and marketing?
I would agree that they're definitely similar. And the reason why I say that too is because oftentimes when I meet people and I tell them what I
Mhm.
do, they automatically assume I do marketing, automatically off the gate. And then when they like introduce me to somebody else, maybe at the same networking event, oh, she does
Yep.
marketing, and I'm like, no, not
Uh,
exactly. However, it falls in line with the same
yeah.
kind of thing. So I agree. It's like the perception that you are trying to put out there to the world, and they're similar
Mm.
from that perspective. But I think that like in order to have good marketing, you need branding
Mm.
behind it. So I feel like
Okay.
branding is kind of like the first part, and then you build
Mm.
on it with things like strategy, you build on it with things
Right.
like visuals, and then that's when you tie in the marketing piece, because I think
Okay.
that's when you try to more so promote and sell.
Mm.
So I
Okay.
think that's kind of like the commonality, but also the difference. Like I feel like branding should come first and then
Right.
marketing, and you use that in order to hopefully sell, right? Whatever
Right.
product or service you have. So that's my take on it.
Hey, I mean, I absolutely agree with you, especially on the point where you're talking about sales,
Mm-hmm.
and promotion. I mean, 100% agreement there. Again, those are things that branding and marketing have in common. They influence sales, and they are utilized to promote and project a specific image out into the world, to
Yes.
attract eyes, viewers, or consumers for sure. So let's go ahead and let's try to define some lines here. What is the difference? Like one hard difference between branding and marketing?
Um, I would say from a perspective of like who's doing it, I don't think
Mm-hmm.
every marketer is someone who can do branding. That's kind of like the
Oh,
difference. So it's
okay.
kind of like, you know how we have brand strategists and we also have
Mm-hmm.
brand designers. I think
Mm,
people can work well with presenting the messaging and
right.
understanding the foundational things of your business that goes into
Mm-hmm.
marketing and stuff. But I think when it comes to the design aspect, that's a little
Mm,
bit of the defining line for me. It's not
okay.
always the case, but I feel like the design element of it is one of the harder differences, right?
Okay.
Um, I'm trying to think of another way to explain it. What's your take on the key difference?
I'm gonna say that one of the major differences that a lot of people get confused. It's like a fine line, but it's fine in the aspect of being thin, like not
Mm-hmm.
always the most obvious to see, and then
Mm-hmm.
fine being once you understand it, it's very distinctive and it stands out. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
So I try to split it up, saying that like if we're talking about a business, right? So marketing would be more about positioning in front of
Agreed.
people,
Mm-hmm.
and how in the channels in which that information travels through.
Yes,
Branding would be more of like the content or collateral that's utilized, the message that's carried across in the
yes,
marketing strategy as well. I think that is like, again, once people realize that, they're like, oh wait, that actually isn't the same thing. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. Now, I like how you said that. Like, yes, the channels, whether it's digital channels like email marketing
Right.
or social media
Right.
versus, yeah, that is the big one. Definitely the channels, and branding oftentimes is thought of as the content. So the
Hmm.
graphics,
Right.
the copy, it's a
Mm.
little bit different. So yeah, I love that description, that breakdown of it.
Okay, so how does branding and marketing come together for web design? If that's a service that you do, you mentioned that.
Yeah, I think so. Honestly, I think that as I mentioned before, the branding piece is kind of like the foundational thing that
Okay.
a lot of times people miss, and they just start marketing. And
Mm,
I think when you don't take a step back and plan it, then it doesn't
mm,
always resonate with the people you're trying to talk to. So that can
okay.
come out wrong in social media, your website. So
Mm,
specifically, since we're talking about like the website component, I think without clear branding, and that's like visual components, that's your messaging, that your perception,
okay.
your position.
Right.
If all of that
Okay.
is not clear on your website immediately, then I think you can turn the viewer off. So I feel like you got like eight
Mm,
seconds to basically
right.
sell yourself, because when they show up on your
Mm,
website, they want to know who you are, what you do, how you serve them, and
mm,
those key things. So without those, which should be established
right.
early on in your brand, I think the
Mm,
marketing piece falls flat. So
Okay.
that's how I would say they kind of tie into each other, but they have to be done in parallel in a sense. Like they have to
Right.
marry each other. That's what I'm trying to say. They have to marry each
Okay,
other
that
in
makes
order
sense.
for it
Yeah. So
to.
at some point they gotta intersect
Yes, and if
to,
they don't, then I don't
okay,
think it's
right.
going to. I don't think it's going to connect with the audience like you intended.
Mm,
That's why when
okay.
you just create something and put it out, and people are like, "It's not selling," it's probably because you haven't created a brand
Mm,
behind it. You haven't
okay.
thought about like the things they care about. You know what I mean? So you're just marketing and saying
Mm,
buy this thing, and nobody knows how amazing that thing is. Like, what's the benefit
mm,
of it? Versus
okay.
it looks nice or it does this function. People need more now.
Right.
So yeah,
Okay. 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 I'm
what would you
definitely feeling
say?
that. Um, I wanted to ask a follow up question for you real
Okay.
fast. So what are some so for someone who is just coming to the understanding like, okay, I need to focus on branding too. What are some of those elements that you think they should be considering, or what is the strategy behind branding, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah, I would say someone that's new to all of it, um, definitely start with the super foundational things of the business.
Okay,
So
like
even
what?
if it's a t-shirt that you're trying to sell or whatever, I would say know like who you're targeting, number one. Like who are
Okay,
you talking to?
okay,
You're not talking to everybody. Because typically it's a
right.
specific group of people that want to buy what you have. So figure out who you're talking
Mm,
to, but also figure out like why you started the business. Like, is it a bigger picture behind
mm,
it?
okay.
Figure out how you can tell your story. Maybe this was created based on a need or something that you had. So figure
Mm,
out how that can connect with the readers too. Because I feel like a lot of times when you're a small business, you have to tell that story in order for people to buy. Because typically they're buying from you as the person.
right,
And then also figure
right, right.
out like the voice you want to have. So,
Okay,
how do you want your brand to come across? So, like for me, I wanted it to be polished and professional, but I also wanted it to be
okay.
personable and like, you know,
Mm,
relaxed to a certain degree, so you can feel like, oh, I
okay,
can share my thoughts about my business with her because she's gonna get it. She's also a business owner. So I say definitely who you're talking to, mission,
okay.
vision, values, where you're going with your business, why you started
Mm,
your business.
okay.
Those are like some of the key branding things that's just solely focused on like messaging. And then once
Mm,
you have that, I say then you move on to some of the other elements like the visual stuff. So your
okay,
logos, your colors, the fonts, because
okay.
those mean things too. Like your fonts have to
Mm,
marry what you're saying, right? Like if
yeah,
I tried to
I'm
use,
just struggling with that.
yeah,
I
like if
got like
you,
8 different fonts.
it's right. So it's like if you, I'm trying to get like a perfect example. Comic Sans, right? When you see Comic
Okay.
Sans, you think of fun. You may think of like kiddish kind of thing. So maybe Comic Sans works for like a daycare, even though I don't want anybody to use
Mm.
Comic Sans, please. I don't want nobody to use it. But it's more in line with a daycare versus a
Okay.
lawyer or, a doctor's office.
Mm.
It doesn't look serious enough to
Okay.
communicate that message you're trying to communicate. So I think those
Mm.
foundational things tie into what you're trying to do, where you're going, and then you create the visual components, the logos, the colors,
Okay.
the imagery, um, and I think go from there. Even though it sounds like, oh, it's that simple, I know it's not that simple, but
Yeah, I hear
those
you.
are like
No, for sure.
starting. The reason why I say that is
Okay.
because if you ever watch um, Shark Tank, that's my favorite
Okay.
show,
Yeah.
or one of them.
Okay.
They
Okay.
always talk about that. They always ask people like, share your story. What made you get started? Of course, they ask about numbers,
Mhm.
but they usually say, why did you start this? What's your background? What's your mission? Those types
Right.
of things, because people want to
Okay.
know in order to feel like they're getting behind something bigger than just buying that t-shirt. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. So if we're gonna kind of phase it out, so found the foundations of branding, right? Before
Yeah.
visuals is
Mhm.
make sure you understand why you're doing this. Having, like you
Yeah.
said, your values, your mission, your vision, and then try to create a character or a personality for your business, like
Yes.
some power words, like what how do you want it to sound if someone was interacting with it, how do you want them to feel, how does that
Mm-hmm.
exchange, kind of like if you're interacting with your friend, you want to give them that your business that type of personality or persona.
Yeah.
And then from there, you want to kind of identify who resonates with this type of character, your buyer's persona.
Yes.
And then in phase two, once you have a solid understanding of your business and your brand, what you intend, then you want to go ahead and start to look at some of those visual elements, like your colors, and
Absolutely.
there's a whole psychology behind colors and in marketing and stuff. But then, like you say, your font, and just some of those visual elements, and then after you get those things down, you have your you have the colors, you have your how you say it, the visual elements plus your foundational understanding of your business. Then you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of enter into that space of marketing. Okay,
Yes.
I think that's excellent. I think that's excellent.
That's a good
So
way to
my
start.
take, let's see, my take on the branding and marketing. That's kind of tough, man.
Now
It's
I
kind of
will say
tough.
is I always also tell people like some of that stuff comes with time, right? So
Mm, yeah,
you start, you think this is what you want to do or this is who you want to talk to, but
yeah.
once you start working, that may not be the case. Which for me, that wasn't the
Mm,
case, and then you kind of pivot, so it may not
right.
stay true forever. It's just doing
Mm,
something to start that's a plan prior to just throwing it out.
right. Okay, yeah. I mean, I think that flexibility is absolutely key. I can even count on my hand how many times I've tweaked or changed my slogan.
Yeah,
The way the brand evolves, and so the way that you present it has to adapt as well. So you can stay
absolutely.
relevant and you can stay on brand as well. So I think for me, if I could sum it up, the difference between branding and marketing is comes down to context and content. So context is all of the information, and the strategy behind why you're going to be presenting something. And then when you're entering into the context or content space, that's your medium. So how do you want this to sound in a video? How do you want this to be portrayed in an article or a blog? How do you want to present this on stage if you're speaking? And then those two things, if as they merge and carry on together, is what establishes that identity in the market. So I'd
Oh yes.
absolutely agree with you on that. Yeah. So I mean, visual identity that goes down to confidence in the way someone feels, how they dress, how they speak. You know what I mean?
All of that.
It's a brand of confidence all in its own. Because if someone is not confident in what their vision is, if they don't have an understanding of what their vision is, what their mission is, then they're gonna be like wibbly wobbly woo when they start talking and sharing people and stumbling. I've done
Yeah.
that several times, so I know.
Well,
You
I
know
mean,
what I
we
mean? Then
all
they're gonna be
have.
sweating. Yeah, we all been there. Then they're gonna be sweating, and they just gonna like shut down. So I mean, we've all been there, but it boils down to confidence in your identity and self, and then the reflection of that is your brand to the world, and then the body or the vehicle in which you share it with others is your business,
Hmm.
in this context at least. So yeah, that's super clutch. That's super clutch. So let's move forward with the. Oh, I love this one. The art of pivoting. Ooh, maybe we should save that one for later. We should save that one for later. Let's go ahead and do. Let's jump around a bit. Let's go ahead and do some of the myths of visual branding. Oh man, there's several of them. I read like 3 or 4 articles. I'm just like, oh my goodness.
The myth. I mean,
Yes, I think.
there is quite a
But
bit for sure.
yeah,
I think that I used to fall into the trap of like feeling like everything had to be from a visual perspective, everything had to be centered. Everything had
yeah.
to be like perfectly centered. Um
Hmm.
that was just one that stood out to me quickly. I don't know why. I
Right.
don't know where I came up with that. Like, you know, the other thing
The
that
process.
I see often is that
Oh, it's not. Is that me? Hold on. Okay, my video is good. All right, kind of froze. We'll give it a few moments here. That's weird. Let me see. That's weird. We're still on. All right. Yep. Looks like I'm good. Yeah, okay. Let's see. All right. We interrupted this program for momentarily. See what happened there. Why is this running? All right. Quick pause. Let's see. All right. All right. Going offline. We back in five. Okay. All right. Give me one moment. Go be back in five. So definitely skip this section. Give me 1 second.
Hello, hello,
Y'all
hello.
good? Yeah, you're
Yeah,
good.
I'm like, what happened?
Yeah,
I
that
think
was
like my
weird.
Wi-Fi just cut. That was very weird. So I don't know what happened there. I'm almost like nervous, like, okay. But I guess can you edit that?
Nope, it's live. It's live. So I'll just let them know to skip the I'll let them know to skip this section and then I'll just do it like that.
Okay, well, live
Ain't no
now.
business
Okay.
like show business.
Wow. I just I'm so I'm done. I totally got thrown off. I don't even know what we were talking about.
It is all good. Okay, we was talking about some of the myths of visual branding. And you had just finished saying that you were in the box of thinking everything had to be symmetrical, and
Yeah.
perfectly centered, and not sure where that came from.
Yeah, so that was one. The
I
other
can
one
kick it off
was
from here if you want some time to
yeah,
think.
go ahead. Cause I
Okay,
totally lost
yeah,
my train of
I
thought.
got you. I got you. It's all good. So one of the things that really got my attention, aside from what I posted on Instagram, is that branding does not drive sales for your business. That is a strong one. That's a strong one. So
Okay.
reason for this, I think the reason for this misconception is because, again, like we said in the beginning, branding is the long game, and it's more based on qualitative. I mean, qualitative data versus quantitative. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
qualitative.
So
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, qualitative, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if we're doing brand a marketing strategy and we change the phrasing of something here, we change the color of something there, or something subtle that makes a big difference. Maybe we change it from red to green and see how it
Mm-hmm.
affects it.
Mm-hmm.
If the messaging doesn't change, then it can be harder to gauge the value that or the impact that the branding affected that campaign. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
But,
I agree
but
with that for
go ahead.
sure.
Hmm.
I was gonna
Hmm.
say I agree because you can have amazing branding, but like you said, ineffective messaging, ineffective
Yeah.
copy, that
Yes.
doesn't make sense with maybe some other element of your brand, right?
Right.
So I
Right.
think that's a good myth for sure.
Yes.
However, on the flip
Okay.
side, I've heard people also argue that branding is not important. Period. Like just put it
Mm.
out.
What?
Branding is not essential for your business. And while I feel like I can
Wow.
understand their reasoning for saying it,
Mm.
especially because it doesn't always contribute to your sales, right? I think
Mm.
that at some point it helps give you credibility.
Okay.
It kind of drives the professionalism within your business to at some point
Okay.
establish a brand. I think the person, or I think the people that I've heard this from, are people that talk really heavily about sales, and you should be selling,
Mm.
selling, selling, and they don't harp so much on how selling ties into marketing, how marketing ties into branding.
Mm.
So
Right.
that's a myth that I feel like I've heard several times, particularly on like
Yeah.
clubhouse rooms and things like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Wow,
Yeah,
that's interesting. I
because they're
think, I
so focused on
mean,
selling.
oh
They're
man.
focused on selling
Right.
your offer, and the quick game of getting it out there, which
Mhm.
I can understand to some degree. But
Right.
once you reach a certain level, and I think your offer is high ticket and things like that, I feel like
Mm.
branding is essential.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree 100%. Me and Josh, we were yeah, we and Josh, we talk about this every now and then. And we try to explain it where in sales, like your branding is more focused on service and retention when it comes
Hmm.
to your customers. You know,
Yeah.
marketing is what's going to be that immediate. If you want an immediate result, then you're going to create a commercial. You're going to market your service. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You could sacrifice on branding if the goal is just to generate results. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of course, there has to be synergy there because you need to
Yeah.
make sure that you're positioning that offer, portraying that offer in a way that showcases the value to the consumer. So that's a there has to be some synergy between branding and marketing. But in terms of sales, if someone's going hard on sales, how they keep their customers and create that brand loyal and create that loyalty for consumers is where I think that's where branding really shines again as that qualitative data. So
Yeah.
if I'm a salesperson and I'm selling a high ticket offer and I'm cold calling or maybe I got a warm lead and they bite and I'm like, okay, great, I'm excited for them. But if I'm giving the person on the phone, the person on the other side, the consumer, the idea that they're just a number or a transaction, how excited and enthusiastic are they going to be about working with us again in the future? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. I think it
Yeah.
also goes to say like how important consistency is. So when you establish that
Mm,
brand, and you have to like be consistent throughout everything, whether it's your visuals, whether it's your messaging,
right.
whether it's your offers.
Right.
I think if people are confused, they don't buy. So if you're marketing,
Mm,
just marketing everything, anything under the sun, for example, because the recession is coming, you got all these random offers that you're
yeah.
creating, which a lot of people probably are doing. It
Yeah.
it can confuse the buyer and cause them not to act on anything because they don't
Mm,
understand how you're going to help them. You know what I mean? You're not being consistent
yeah.
in your messaging. So that's what I would say about
Your
that.
brand promise. Yeah, I
Hmm.
absolutely agree. And there's just one more tidbit. I mean, feel free to share as well. So again, when it comes to the relationship and the intent there, another way that branding shines and drives sales is through that consistent communication with those customers. So
Yeah.
if there's like a drip campaign or a newsletter or a social media page or even a community like a Facebook group or
Hmm.
something like that,
Yep.
how those things are managed and facilitated, the way they're presented to the customer is all of that is a part of branding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Keeping
But
them
marketing
to
too.
stay, yeah, right. Keeping them to stay top of mind. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And then as far as like the copy, that's where the fusion of marketing comes into play as well with having your call to action, having those keywords in there, being direct if that's what it takes, that attitude, and the way it's communicated is where it's blended with marketing. So messaging plus promotion, equals marketing in a way in the
Yeah.
positioning. So that's how I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree. I definitely think that's a good way to describe it because, like you said, it's hard for somebody to make a sale with just the branding. Like if you don't talk about
Right.
it, if you don't promote it, nobody
Exactly.
knows, so nobody's
If
gonna
you don't
buy.
ask for the sale, you ain't getting
Yeah.
paid. I
Right.
mean,
Right. So if you want the sale, you kind of have to market in some form or fashion. So yeah.
right. Yeah, that's my area of challenge. So I'm definitely in the next season going to be focusing more that, on actually telling people what it is that I do versus just creating content that's valuable for them. Because it's like, okay, that's great. You're doing a lot of good stuff. If we want to hire you, what are
How
we
can we do
hiring you
that?
for? You know,
Yeah.
and exactly how can we do it? What for? How can you add value to my company? Those type of things. So more talking to like pain points and value
Yeah.
propositions, and we can get real technical with the words.
Yeah. And like transformation, what transformation do you
Yeah,
offer? All of that. It's like it's like once you
yeah,
step your toe into like the digital marketing land, especially service
yeah.
providers, like it's a whole
Especially,
lingo of like the terms and
yeah,
yeah. I know I think a lot of people struggle with that too because
yeah.
if you are just not a salesy kind of person by nature, then I
Mm-hmm.
think the marketing component is not just like a normal thing to do. Like I'm the
Right.
same
That's
way.
fair.
Like
That's
I'm
fair.
very even like my personal like Facebook page, I
Yeah.
use it for personal use. I have a business
Mm-hmm.
Facebook page. I use that for business. So
Right.
oftentimes I don't always talk about my business on my personal page because part of me is like I
Mm.
hate when I feel like I'm always sold to from people sliding in my DMs with like
Mm.
random multi-level marketing things. But in the
Yeah.
same sense, it's like, okay, people see these highlight things of what I'm doing, but like
Mm-hmm.
if I don't talk about it enough, they'll forget or they won't know. So I struggle, same with you, of
Right.
sharing that marketing piece in my
Mm-hmm.
personal kind of page because
Right.
it's like I'm thinking two separate ways. Like I've
Right.
always kind of been that way, so I can understand how
Right.
it's a struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, for all of us listening, what is kind of like, um, what is something we can do to kind of help ourselves, you know? So, context wise, so I've been doing some research, more research on lead generation. So you can do like a what I'm calling like a platform to platform transfer. So that's a, hey,
Hmm.
click the link in my bio. You're going from one channel to another, and then that may lead you to a landing page or a squeeze page or an email capture page before
Yep.
they receive their deliverable. And
Yep.
then there's the other one where the goal is to get them offline
Into your
entirely
email.
and
Yes.
participate. Yeah, and
Yeah.
participate in something. So, well, you know, in your perspective and your experience, what are your thoughts on that?
So that's a big one. I feel like this year was really the transition when I
Mm,
really started diving into utilizing those things. Before that, I really
okay.
didn't do a lot of it. It was more word of mouth referrals. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like once I established things like what do they call them? Freebies, downloadables,
Okay. Right.
things to grab like content that you can create in order to grab their
Mm.
information, like their
Oh,
email
like
address
lead
and things like
magnets.
yes, I can think of the word lead magnets.
Yeah.
Once I started creating that, I realized okay, I'm taking you, like you said, you off the platform, which in this case it's my website, onto my
Mm-hmm.
email list, but then you have to
Right.
continuously follow up because there's no
Mm.
point of doing it if you don't, right? So
Yes,
that's what I
ma'am.
realized an effective way to do that is to build out like a whole um like a lead magnet campaign in order to
Okay.
keep it going. So it's not just you grab it and then you're done. Like I think initially I was doing that like years ago. And then
Right.
it was like, no, you need a funnel, which is basically a series of emails to allow
Mm.
people to understand your business beyond that freebie, or whatever it is, the lead magnet, right?
Okay.
The PDF.
Right. Right.
So I think that was one tactic that I really implemented this year. It was
Mm.
they get that, they learn about my story, they learn about
Right.
my services, they see testimonials. Maybe I'm
Mm.
motivating them somewhere in there.
Okay.
I'm trying to get them to feel like I've been in their shoes. It's several tactics. That's
Mm.
just
Right.
one.
Right. Yeah.
So
Right.
the
I
other one
know
was
it.
like, I think you said take them off of one platform into like a live event. That's another
Yeah.
one where you're literally like trying to get them to engage with you, trying to get them to give you information. I feel like that's
Mm.
the harder one to convert because you're trying
Okay.
to get them to
Right.
make a commitment to do something. And
Mm.
so that's definitely something that I feel like I've done, but I haven't fully executed it yet because
Mm. Okay.
I think that's also a lot of marketing involved. Marketing all over different platforms
Yes.
consistently. I
Yeah.
think you have to be very um, planned, like very well planned for that.
Very
Otherwise, you're gonna
strategic.
burn
Okay.
out. You're gonna burn out relatively
Mm.
quickly. But I think that's a
That's
great
true.
way to get
That happened to me
people.
in my first business. Yeah.
It's a lot. So that was one.
Okay.
Platform to platform
Okay.
is a great one too. But I honestly feel like platform to platform can get tricky if you're not
Mm.
consistent on both of the ones that you're on. You know what I mean?
Okay. Fair. Fair.
Um,
Fair.
so like
Fair.
if you're taking somebody from Instagram and TikTok, and if you ain't on TikTok, then why would you do
Nah, that
that?
makes
Like you got one specific TikTok thing, or I feel like
yeah.
that can get tricky. So I
Okay.
think the most effective, honestly, for me is getting them off your website. Like, no, number one, taking them off the social media platform onto your website.
Okay.
And then I think from your website, they should be getting into your email funnel from that freebie or that
Okay.
lead magnet. That's what I would say. But then
Okay.
you also
Okay.
have to
Cool.
continuously execute.
Right.
But
Okay.
yeah,
So let me ask you this. I mean, I think that is an excellent strategy. Um, to answer both sides. If you're going to do it a cross-platform thing, or you're going to get them offline into your own campaign, it's phenomenal.
yeah.
But I'm very curious. What are your thoughts on like full websites versus like landing pages? For what are your thoughts on those?
So I have my thoughts for sure. I love full websites, but I think they both have a very specific purpose. So
Okay.
full websites are meant to be your house, like your digital home. It's
Okay.
meant to showcase your best work. It's also meant to kind of tell your
Mm,
story, walk you, basically dictate how they navigate throughout your website. Like I hate when the
okay.
only way
That's a
people can
website
put
architecture. Like
different,
that's deep.
yeah. I feel like the mistake a lot of people made was they put the navigation and that's it, and they make people scroll up and down, up and down. But really, I
Mm,
feel like your website should be carefully organized so that it can basically help them navigate to the next page. So call to
okay.
action buttons and things like that.
Okay.
And it should be about the user, like the actual person viewing it versus
Mm,
you the whole time.
right.
Um,
Do
and
you
I
work
think
with
it's
a what is it, UX UI
UI.
designer, or
I
you do
don't. I
everything
think some of
yourself?
it is just. I think it's just over time you pick up
Mm,
on little things, and
okay.
I find websites and I'm like, dang, I like how they organize that, and I like
Yeah.
little things, and so I implement that for my clients.
Okay.
So
Word. Word.
that's
Word.
one thing. I think it's when you're trying to showcase an entire brand, you have their whole
Mm,
website versus a landing page, or I think you call it a squeeze page.
yeah.
I feel like those are for like one specific offer, one thing, and it's long as
Okay.
hell, and it's like buy this testimonial, buy this testimonial
Right.
video.
Right.
This is why it's so great. Buy this, and it's several. That's what I think
Okay.
of. Like it's several
Right.
call to action buttons multiple times throughout that page, and it's for one
Mm,
specific thing, not
okay.
all your services. I feel like that's
Right.
an effective landing page. Versus,
Mm,
I mean, they do have
okay.
the one pager sliders; those are
Right.
cool. But I feel like whenever I try to
You gotta be
promote that,
mindful of how much content you put on
yeah,
there.
how much content,
So,
and then I also think it's also only effective if the person doesn't have a lot of content, like a lot of words. If you're like
okay.
straight to the point, you got like three services, two services, you don't have to explain it. I think maybe a slider website is okay.
Okay,
But
like a
typically
portfolio
people don't
type of
even want it.
situation. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like people
Interesting.
don't. Yeah, people off to me, the people that I work with, they want the traditional 5 pages across the top, or they
Right.
want a landing page for a specific signature item or product.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
What
So
has been
far
your
we've
experience?
gotten. I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I mean, let's see what I've worked on, right? I mean, I've worked on more than I have in my possession. Okay. So I've done the one pager,
Yeah.
for a highly targeted campaign, like a sales page where there's
Yeah. Right.
intro. This is what it's about. This is how it goes. This is what you receive. This is what people are saying. This is how you get it. You know, the kind of like
Yep.
that's the
Basically.
flow for that one pager. And then I've done the 2-page website where it's a little bit more robust. You're learning about who I am, my intention, the services that I provide, and even some offers that are available to the consumers that visit that page. And then I've also worked with people who have full 5-page, the traditional website, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's just like, man, it really depends. That's more like if you're going to create like a client portal, I think that's super effective um, to have like a full blown website.
Yeah.
If you're having like events going on and you want it all centralized, you want to have the website. If you want to be able to have multiple touch points and just have, like I said, go to a centralized location, I think a website is really effective as well. Because the last thing you want, like you said, is to be scrolling for 6 minutes.
Especially if they're on their
Ain't
phone.
nobody got time for that.
Everybody's on
Facts.
their phone. So it's like, all
Yeah.
right, well, how
You
much
need to
is
make
it?
sure it's
Like that's how I feel. How much
optimized.
is the offer? And you're scrolling for days, and it's I just need to know the price.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna move on to this next section after this. So I want to get your thoughts as well on like cold email and cold calling. Based on the conversation we've had so far, you mentioned like having kind of like a controlled variable being a freebie or offer a lead magnet is helpful in curating the type of people that you attract. So that gives you a little bit more influence on who you're targeting and who's
Yeah.
receiving your services. So
Yeah.
what are you on the opposite spectrum? How do you feel about like cold calling and cold emailing? Yeah.
I don't do it. I don't. I'm not a.
Wow.
And I
That's
think it's
impressive.
because of me naturally. I'm not a salesy person. So
Mm.
I feel like I feel like you need to, especially in today's world, you have so many
Okay.
access to things to spectate, to
Mm.
engage, to
Mm.
like, to comment, to share,
Right.
that I feel like they should have an inkling that you exist to some degree
Mm.
before you just go and like, hey girl, or hey, I would love to. I
Mm.
mean, that's my thought. Now I could
Okay.
be completely wrong on that, but that's what I feel. I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Okay.
And
I
so
respect
my
that.
way of like warming people up would be to do that research. Would be to identify who
Mm.
those people are. Maybe people that's in their circle. Maybe we have somebody we're connected to. Maybe you can have an
Right.
introduction. Maybe you can
Okay.
engage with them on social media. Maybe you can show up to a
Okay.
networking event they're in. Like I scope the scene
Mm.
when
Okay. Do some
I know
research. I
I
respect
do,
that.
because I feel like if you come in with some research and like you know the person or you've done something, like I think they can
Mm-hmm.
tell versus you just saying this is my service, because I think you can tailor your your pitch better when you
Mm.
have
Okay.
a reference of like commonality versus
Okay.
not. But that's
For
also
sure.
still something I'm like, I don't necessarily pitch people regularly, but I'm perfecting that. So I'm getting to that idea.
Mm.
So I'm in the
Nice.
scoping phase of these are the people I want to reach out to.
Okay. Right.
How can I engage? So I think you have to be intentional with engagement prior. Um,
Mm.
but that's me. What are your
Okay.
thoughts? And I'm never picking up the phone and just calling. Like that's definitely
Not happening,
definitely
huh?
not happening. No, 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 no. Not
Oh,
happening.
that's hilarious. That's
Yeah,
hilarious. That's hilarious. Hold on, let me check
yeah.
one thing. Let me see. I just want to check my settings real quick.
Okay.
Okay, cool. My audio is coming through my computer. I just had to double check because that was the issue we had before. All right, perfect. So honestly, I think it's challenging because
Yeah.
I've tried both. I've tried both. So I've done the cold DMing before, and well, let me reverse it. So I've done cold DMs with people that I've had very minimal relationship or engagement with. So I would say
Okay.
those leads are colder than warm because we don't communicate on a regular. So I've done that before,
But
and
just new people, like you've never engaged with
yeah,
them. You've done those?
yeah. I
How did it
mean,
go?
it was awkward. I'm not gonna lie to you. It
Yeah.
was
And
awkward.
for me, I think because it feels weird on the receiving end, I don't want to
Mhm.
do it.
Right,
So yeah.
right, right. No, I feel that. But I think that's a part of the game. It's a part of the process. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, no one's gonna be like unless you have a direct referral from a client that you serviced and you overwhelmed them with awesomeness. You know what I mean? Like you exceeded
Yeah.
their expectation and they're like, "Yo, you need to talk. You need to
To this
talk to me."
person. Yeah.
Um, Everyone else is going to be kind of mild or cold. You know what I mean?
I can see that.
Even with referrals, because they haven't interacted with you directly. You know what I mean? They're more so going off the strength of your service and how you made someone else feel.
Yeah.
I'd say that the most, if I had to say ideal situation, is to have a referral basis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Creating a referral basis. What's your thoughts on that? I have an
I
interesting
just
take on
did
it,
it.
but I want to know about you. Okay, word,
I
word.
just did it. I literally just launched it. Like
Like
it's
an
really
affiliate
been,
program?
yeah, like literally
Okay,
like
word.
2 weeks ago.
Okay,
Um,
word, fresh.
because I saw that a lot of my clients came through referrals, and I think it's the
Mm,
strength of their relationship and them trusting people that
right.
translated to the sale.
Mm,
So once I realized that was happening more often,
yeah.
I also felt like the process was easier to navigate,
Mm,
because it was trust there versus
right.
like sometimes I get clients or people that reach out and I can tell from the discovery call, that
Mm,
they are skeptical maybe, or they've had bad
mm,
experiences in the past,
right.
with other designers. So it's like I can kind of get a feel for where they are if they've done this before. So I think
Mm,
I lean more now into like referrals, versus
okay.
cold. Versus, I
Right.
mean, I still think you have to market and everything, but I feel like the referral thing is a way to incentivize people to advocate for your brand and to come
Okay.
back again. So
Okay.
if
So
you have
repeat
services,
business and advocacy?
both. So I
That's
have it to
powerful.
where if you work with me before, you can be an affiliate, so you can basically, say Teaira's great, work with her. And
Mm,
if you want to like work with me more for like social media graphics and things like that, you can be like
mm.
a loyal client, is what I call them, and they basically
Okay.
get money off for continuing to support.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
or
I
you
got
can
a
just be
program
an
like that
advocate.
too.
You can literally just say, I've been stalking her on social media for months
Yeah.
and I can't afford her right now, but I believe she's dope at what she does. And so I'm
Right.
going to advocate. I'm an affiliate. Like, you don't have to have work with me if you believe in it that
Mm.
much. You know what I mean?
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a great icebreaker for new businesses for sure.
Yeah.
Especially those who follow you and they see the value and they, like you said,
Yeah.
might be in a space where they can't afford it right now.
Right.
For them to be able to still engage and support you in a different capacity, is
Mm-hmm.
a great opportunity. Oh man, I'm hype off that because I have a program like that for my business, but it's not rolled out yet. Just
Yeah.
because of my experience so far, it just isn't. It's not time yet. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
know
I
how it is.
mean, that took
You're a
time.
visionary. Yeah, you're a visionary too. So like
Yeah.
you got the plan already in motion. You like, I just gotta get there. You know what I
I'm more
mean?
of I always got stuff in my mind that I want to do. But
Yeah.
yeah, having time to promote it, having all of it to build it out, to execute is
Yeah, the
important. So yeah,
campaign.
yeah, I think that's good. Cool.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. So, man, we've covered a lot so far from how to establish oneself. We're sorry, we talked about the foundations of branding,
Hmm.
from understanding and getting a clear idea of what your brand is about and the promise you intend to deliver, to entering
Yeah.
into the colors, the typography, and the representation through icon or
Yeah.
logo, to really represent yourself strongly in the market. And then transitioning and introducing process and operations in there on how to merge branding and marketing to drive sales through email campaigns, whether that's a controlled campaign with which you're having a lead magnet and you're able to funnel people through there, or you're doing a more open campaign and you're moving people from platform to platform, social media to your website, or getting
Yeah.
them offline, which is more challenging, but it is doable.
Yeah.
And now we just finished covering just awesome stuff, man. This is great so far. So now we're gonna revert and go to the art of pivoting. That is something I really want to talk about. I really want to talk about that. So For sure. I'm in this bucket as well. And I've also talking to I have friends who sold businesses. I have friends who've closed businesses. I have friends
Yeah,
who purchased the businesses, and I have friends who rebranded themselves.
yeah,
And I'm a part of that. And I've had business friends who evolved their idea from a concept to an enterprise, and up the ladder to six figures.
yeah,
So one thing we all share in common is a fear of change, a fear of the unknown. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Especially when it comes to trying to keep up with trends or just stay topical when it comes to content, and just not feeling like maybe feeling like we're demotivated and stuff like that. And it really takes a toll on our motivation, our endurance. So, what is that's for damn sure. Change is difficult in business,
Very.
especially because the risks are involved. So, what is one change that you think people people have as entrepreneurs that we all share, and how you think we could kind of work a way around it or embrace it?
And how can we embrace the change? I'm trying to
Yeah,
understand
like
the question.
how can we process change in a way that empowers us to move forward, despite the fear or concern of losing out, or hey, I'm not going to be as successful as I was, or
Hmm.
maybe this is not cut out for me, those type of things.
I think the way to kind of do it is for me, I think is pausing and not acting
Mm,
really fast. I think
okay.
if you pause and like get clarity, because oftentimes a lot of it is just noise. Like you got all
Mm,
these distractions, you got everybody competing for your attention, you got
right.
trends, you got all of these things on top of regular life, right? So I think
On
I
top
think
of
you just
regular
have to
life.
pause, like literally pause. And sometimes you have to just spectate. Like that's exactly what I felt like helped me
Mm,
during the art of the pivot. Like I paused, I watched, I also, instead of completely like pivoting without
mhm,
any warning, I think I stepped my toe out to like see
mm.
like how it was. Like I checked the temperature, like I
Okay,
put
test the
something
waters.
out and I'm like, okay, how is this gonna be like received from my audience? Like
Okay.
before I just shut it down and did something else. And I think a lot of times people don't test, they don't get quiet. They don't get quiet. That's the first thing.
Mm,
And get clarity around what they're trying to do. Because sometimes, like I know for me as a creative, we have 10 million ideas and we think every idea is the idea. And it's like, no, it's
oh
not.
my
It's
goodness.
not the move.
Uh,
Like sometimes I have to stop my brain and say, okay, you
yeah.
got a great idea, and then
Mm,
tomorrow you're gonna have another great idea. Just like write it down, brain dump it,
mm,
sit with it for a while, think how does this fit into my bigger plan. I think that's
right.
all in the art of being quiet and being still. Because if you act
Mm,
immediately, you may confuse your audience. So I
fair.
think that being quiet piece is important. And then once you do that, I think you have to test it
Mm,
and see like how are
right.
people going to like interact with it. How do people,
Mm,
it's not that you want validation, but you want some form of
yeah,
um
you do kind of have to get some
like thumbs up,
validation.
like it's needed.
Yeah.
Like you need to know that it's needed, otherwise nobody will buy
Right.
it. And
That's true.
so I think that's also just like something you
Mm,
have to do, testing, and then come up
mm,
with a plan to roll it out, to do it. Don't
that's
just
real.
say, because I've done that too. I've made that mistake where I'm like, I'm gonna do this now. I'm gonna add this product, and I
Yeah.
posted and it was crickets. Okay. I
Ah,
mean, I was embarrassed. Like
there,
I
same,
added this
same.
complimentary product. I built out how I wanted it to be at, like, you put time into like building it
Yeah.
out and doing all this stuff and
Mm,
making it fancy, branding, right? And
right.
then nobody bought it. And I was like, whoa, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, nobody wants it. And so, I mean, I had to
Mm,
make that mistake, right? To see now that's not the way to do it.
yeah.
But
Mm,
without a plan, without like really testing, you may fail. Just know that. And it's
mm,
okay, but just be prepared for a lesson somewhere in there because it may not
right.
hit the way you think it's going to hit.
Were you like? were you nervous at all? Like when you made
Yeah,
those decisions, like I'm gonna go ahead and scale down for a bit to focus in and reposition and be better. Was
yeah,
there any like concerns when you were doing
yeah.
that or
I think every decision big that I make in the business, I'm nervous about, but I think it's
mm,
because
respect?
I want it to be received well. So like that first
Right.
time I did that, I was selling stationery and I wanted to add complimentary like
Mm-hmm.
products, and I think I had came up with these like custom mugs with like inspirational quotes or something. I thought it was amazing.
Okay. Yeah.
Nobody bought it, right? I was scared to launch it, of course, right?
Yeah.
But
Right.
I didn't have a campaign. I just boom,
Mm.
here it is. I didn't lead up to it. I didn't do any of that, but I don't think
Right.
I realized that all of that went into it prior to releasing it. So
Mm.
when it didn't sell, I was a little bit deflated, like, oh my God, like
Right.
my worst nightmare.
Wow.
But in actuality, it's like nobody knew you for that anyway. So it's like, okay, it sells. It was a blip, and then I
Mm.
moved on. And I think
Right.
it's like you kind of got to be in the mindset of like you're always going to be
Mm.
trying things and it may not work. So when I
Right.
was in the idea of transitioning fully from stationery and just leaving that
Mm-hmm.
whole industry, like wedding stationery, I was really nervous. I
Wow.
didn't know how I was going to be received. I was
Right.
like, I basically was on the brink of shutting it all the way down and was like,
What?
I had went back to corporate.
Yeah.
I was just like,
Wow.
this is not gonna work. My life is very different from when I thought, I
Mm.
was gonna do this full time. And
Right.
so I was like, this is not gonna work. But I was like, well, let me put it
Mm.
out there. And, I tested it literally on my platform that I was known for selling this one thing. I tested it and was like, hey, doing this,
Right.
like behind the scenes and things like that. And I think once I started testing it and I saw that people
Mm.
wanted it without trying to sell them automatically. It was just like
Right.
past stuff or makeup stuff. Like if you know you have the skill for it, makeup fake projects. People don't gotta know they fake. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
That's
And
true. Pseudo. Yeah. Pseudo. Yeah.
showcase it, right? And so I
Mm.
think that is what kind of caught on. And then once I realized people actually wanted it, I was like, well, shit,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
I
I
hear
was like,
that.
well, I should have been offering this, and I had to
Mm.
like get past the fear. I mean, honestly, like I said,
Mm.
I'm nervous about every new thing, every big shift. Um, you just gotta like just do it because you're not gonna know unless you try it.
Mm.
Yeah,
Dang. Okay. I respect that. I think, man, this is what's personal to me. Um, I think another part of fear in the beginning and going up to like scaling a business is just man, this is tough
the
trying to get this
unknown.
out. Yeah, but I mean, I'm trying to get it out. It's like not giving up on yourself. You know what I
Oh well,
mean? Like,
that's a big mindset
man,
thing.
that's tough, man. Because
It's a
like
mindset.
when when you put all the work in, you know what I mean? You've done the research, you created the product, in my case, validated it in the market, had consumers try it through betas, and it's like, okay, yeah, this has been proof now, it's been reviewed. Okay, now I'm ready to open it to the market. And then nothing happens. You know what I mean? It's like, man. And then it's in entrepreneurship, there seems to be a lot of that, especially because there's so much to learn. And I think, like you said, it is a mindset thing, but just persevering and going through it, and holding on to the support. And I'm going to use the word validation
Yeah,
that you get that reinforces the need or the solution that you're trying to deliver.
and
That's
timing,
yeah,
timing.
and timing too. That's timing.
Yeah, because you kind of mentioned it with the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Timing. Go ahead.
you kind of mentioned like the affiliate program and it's not time. So I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when you roll things out and it's not time for it, it's hard
Mm.
to make people buy. So like sometimes
Mm.
you have
Okay.
to be cognizant of like economic things that are happening and just different stuff, right? Or even
Mm.
like
Right.
I give you a perfect example. I was about to launch something Q4, but
Mm-hmm.
Q4 is like in 5 seconds, like literally.
That's true.
I was like, I haven't promoted this. I haven't built
Mm,
out all of the stuff for it. I haven't
mhm.
been, talking about it. And I was like, well, I'm just setting myself up to potentially fail because I didn't prepare
Mm,
enough time
okay.
for it. So
Word.
it's not the right time. And then I was like,
Mm,
okay, well, just because I don't have to do it right now doesn't mean I can't be planning for the next 3 months, 4 months until
word.
Q1 of next year to launch it.
Mm,
Like sometimes, because also, not to mention, I wasn't fully prepared, but the holidays are coming. People probably
word.
are not going to be focused on what I'm selling. They probably focus on buying
Mm,
products for their friends and family that they're not looking
right.
at this other service that
Mm,
she's offering.
right.
So
Okay.
timing, I think, is key. And then just feeling like if it don't hit the first time, that it won't hit ever. It's the
Okay.
mindset. Maybe it's the way in which it's being delivered. It's so many things.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah, I know there's so
um,
many variables. It can easily become overwhelming. And when I talked to like the prior market that I served, it was like the infant entrepreneur. Like there's like, I got this idea, I
yeah.
want to bring it together and make a brand off of it or a business off of it. And it's just like, man, you know what you're getting yourself into, like there's so many variables just to say this is the direction I'm going in. Just getting to that space is like a lot of information. Like you
Hmm.
just gotta thug it out and hope for, not hope for the best, but be as strategic as you can because it is a part of the learning process. You're using
Absolutely.
the word campaign often, and we've talked about that a little bit. Can you give us a bit more context on what does that mean, like a campaign for something? What does that mean?
I would say campaign, kind of like a marketing plan. I would say a series of like posts and ways to
Mm,
promote something.
okay.
It can be digitally, which most things are digital now, but just basically a series of ways to promote something, to bring brand
Mm,
awareness to something,
mm,
to showcase the need, to showcase how it could be a benefit. That's
mm,
kind of what I mean when I say campaign. So like,
okay.
how are we gonna talk about the thing in order for somebody to buy it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of like visual identity, I'm sorry, it has been an hour. There's still a little bit more we can talk about. It. Is that okay with you? Can we move forward?
Yeah, I would say another 5 or 10 minutes is cool.
Okay, cool, cool.
Yeah.
So in terms of like visual branding and curating your visual identity, I noticed that on, especially on Instagram, like there's like a lot of curation,
Hmm.
on the type of content, the way the information flows. So like, how do you create a campaign without it like taking away from the uniformity of your Instagram page or whatever that platform is? You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
I think
Like how
that's
do you weave
when
that
you
in?
have, huh?
No, I was just saying, like, how do you weave that in? I'm
I
listening to
would
you.
say weed it in terms of like colors, and I feel like your
Mm,
thing needs to be in alignment with your whole brand, if that makes sense. So like,
okay.
colors, even fonts and things like that. But I also want to urge people to not get caught up on only that, because
Mm,
now we're seeing the trend of like people not being so curated, and in the
mm,
era of like video and like things like TikTok, people like to see the unpolished version of things.
mm,
So I think planning it out to have some element of like consistency is cool, but I think that often stops people from doing it because they're so worried
mm.
about the look of their feed. And I had to get past that too, honestly. Like it was like, oh, it has
Word,
to be
okay.
this way, but I was like, screw it. I'm holding content because I didn't make a cover photo, or I didn't have time.
Mm,
Like just do it. And sometimes I think you just have to, if the campaign makes sense with everything else, if the campaign has multiple components, not just one post, then I say, put it out, but
mm.
be mindful of how it will look with everything. Just don't get caught on it.
Okay. Okay, her respect, respect.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're gonna bring all of this thing into full circle. So, as the expert, how do we take all of this information, from branding with visual, from mixed medium content, video, blog, Instagram, TikTok, all of these different mediums that we want to spread our brand through to create as much visibility and awareness as possible. but also being very targeted as best we can so we can attract the ideal or right customers. So
Hmm.
with all of these things in mind, what are some notes on how do we maximize our visual identity?
Hmm. Okay, first I would say after you do all the strategy, colors, all that, once you have that established, I think you should create a guide for
Mm,
yourself or whoever is doing it for you. So, like a brand guidelines type of
okay.
guide to basically put that into one document so people know what are the things that you're using often, your colors, the
Mm,
codes for them, your fonts, the types of imagery, like the feel that you're going for, so that the person can carry that consistency throughout. I
mm,
also feel like once you do that, you can then create other things to make your marketing easier, like creating
mm,
templates.
okay.
Once you have templates made, you can create content faster. So I think
Mm,
those two things are really important. I also think that you also can determine like content pillars that you're creating. So
okay.
think about like
Content.
buckets on, I always tell people like you want a bucket of like motivational kind of content, especially if you're talking to
Mm,
entrepreneurs regularly, right? Because we get unmotivated. So
that's
motivation,
true.
inspiration, something of that degree. You also want to have promotional kind of content where you're selling, like telling them about the service, telling them
Mm,
about why it's so good, the benefits, how they'll feel. You also want to have proof, you know what I mean? Like reviews and
mm,
testimonials. So I feel like establishing those content pillars is also something that can also lend itself to like preparing for the marketing and making
mm,
like maximization of your identity like apparent. Um,
okay.
so those are like the three things I would say. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah,
How does rebranding tie into that?
um, tie into maximizing your
The
identity.
yeah, the ability to elevate your brand.
I feel like rebranding is when you're telling your audience about it. I think you need to leverage social media too.
Mm,
Like when you know you're about to do it, walk them through that process. It's content. I tell my clients all the time, don't wait until the end when you drop the website when we've been working together for 4 months. Like
right. Okay.
build
Word.
anticipation. Let them
Mm,
know why you're shifting. Give
mm,
them an idea. Bring them in. Have them vote on things. Like that is like content that you can also use to build that trust with them, build the loyalty.
mm,
Um, and it's content. It's another way for you to promote basically and get
okay.
awareness to your brand. So I feel
Right.
like rebranding can definitely be tied into like the campaign and utilizing
Mm, yeah. Okay.
showcasing your new brand as it's being built. Because typically
Okay.
you have the brand identity, you have the colors, then you have the logo, then um you might have social media templates, and then at the very end
Mm,
you may have a website, but don't wait until the end. You know what I
okay.
mean?
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So last thing, and we'll wrap up. So what are some of the side effects of poor branding?
Side effect. Ooh, yes, that's
Yes.
people wasting your time.
Ooh. That's real.
Wasting your time. Okay. So a perfect example, you just trying to market to everybody. So you have the brand, you have the business, but you're talking to everybody in their mouth. Like it's not clear as to like what you specialize in. And so you
Mm,
may get all kind of people from all kind of industries, and they may not be in alignment with what you who you want to work with. So I feel
mm,
like poor branding, poor messaging, all of that can lead to basically you wasting your time and your energy trying to
mm.
chase a person and trying to sell versus
Right.
clear branding, clear imagery, clear all of that. I think attracts the people that you're trying to
Okay.
attract.
Okay.
That's a big one. I would
That's a big
say
one. Okay.
for sure. That's a
Word.
big
Okay.
one.
Word. So to maximize your brand identity, visual identities especially, you want to have a clear goal in mind, right? So the the reason why we're rebranding is for X, a stronger position in the market, a attracting more ideal clients,
Not just because.
we portraying our value in a way that matches the service that we deliver.
Yes.
So in terms of the goal is to elevate, right?
Yes.
Um, and I would imagine that working with a professional is highly recommended at that point in business because of the side effects, right?
Absolutely.
If someone does all of that kind of on their own or without the expert opinion, they run the risk of redirecting in a downward position, maybe repelling
Yes.
customers, creating confusion through that lack of clarity. And now, pretty much everything that you built up until this point, it has the potential to decline. I'm not going to say crumble or diminish
Yeah.
because it
Or
can
even like
recover.
having to do it again. Like I think a lot of times
Mm,
people take the cheaper route and
okay.
they're like, "Oh, I just need this," and they
Mm,
say they branded or they rebranded when they only changed their colors or they only got a new logo, but they got one logo
mm.
in one file type with a white background. Like they don't
I see what you're
holistic
saying.
picture. And
Right.
so
They didn't get
I
all the
think
files.
they realized later, like, oh, maybe I should have worked with someone maybe with a
Mm,
higher level of experience to give me
okay.
everything because now I may have to start over. Because
Mm,
honestly, I at this point I don't even when people come to me and they're like, I just need a website, and I'm like, okay, do you have brand assets? And they're like, yeah.
mm,
Do you have more than just your logo? Like I have to ask very specific questions. Can I see your
mm.
assets? What type of
Right.
file types do you have? What type of images? Do you have professional images? Because I think people
Mm,
automatically assume you can take what they have and make it great. And if they don't have the right
mm,
foundational things, I can't do nothing with it. And then I'm
mm.
out here looking crazy because I put my name on it. And I
Right.
only really did put it together, but I'm polishing a turd is what I like to. I'm polishing a turd. And I really can't do
No,
nothing with that. Like, and so I don't
that's
even
terrible.
do that no more
That's
because
not
I
your
really
ideal client.
no,
Mm,
it's not my ideal client. I have to work within bounds.
mm,
And sometimes I feel like they may not be fully happy with the overall picture because I'm working with them
mm,
they already had, which may not be
mm.
good to work with. You know what I mean?
Okay, word. So essentially, especially for products like food and service-based companies like coaches and things, I think that's a big piece. Having a professional photos for your brand
Yes.
is, I think
Yeah.
that's essential as well. Okay, cool, cool. All right, perfect. So I'm gonna just share my piece on it, and then we'll wrap up. I appreciate your time. So for me, how to maximize a visual identity is to keep tabs on how the brand evolves over time. Going back to those pivot, learning how to pivot and talking about rebranding. A part of that may include increasing your price, um, changing maybe changing the way that you present certain information, how you repurpose content,
Mm-hmm.
and all of these things. So, in order to kind of brand your business accordingly, you want to make sure that you have a good pulse on where it is because it's harder to brand an enterprise like a startup because you're not at the location anymore. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. And you
Um,
have data to kind of
yes,
view.
right,
Yeah.
true, 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 true.
Yeah.
So that's my take on it. So that's how. And all right, fam, and everybody, that's how you kind of maximize your visual identity. We went all through the scopes. If you're watching this replay, we appreciate you for tuning in. Any last words or pieces of motivation that you have for us?
Um, I honestly feel like the first piece I would start with is strategy. So
Mm.
before you go creating all these things in Canva and you using 5 million colors and all these things, I feel like take a step back and think about why you started the business, why it's
Mm.
important, the story, mission, all those things. And I feel like the strategy build out should drive the visuals.
Mm.
And if you skipped it, it's fine. Go back and then start fresh because
Mm.
oftentimes if they're mismatched, it may not have the same impact that you're looking to have. So
Mm.
that's what I would say. Um,
Love that.
and if you need that shameless plug, I have a
Hey,
course
go
on
ahead. That's
strategy.
right. Let's
So,
go.
the brand strategy playbook master course teaches you how to build out that strategy so that
Nice.
once you're ready to start creating visuals like your website and your logo, and maybe you know you want to get professional photos, you should be able to go through that course, complete your workbook, and hand that
Mm,
off to somebody like a brand photographer or
wow, that's
um,
impressive.
a web designer or maybe a virtual assistant that's helping you in order to
Mm,
get your message out the right way. So I feel like strategy is like super important. So if you need a support with that, the course will help.
mm,
That's also a way to kind of be introduced to me as a person, and like before you work with me one on one, it's just a way to do it. So yeah.
wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. All right, in my closing remarks, everyone, if I had to choose something to focus on, something that I'm going to continue to do is going to be pacing, tact, and pacing. Those things are extremely important. Um, it's really essential, whether at any point in business, to understand where you are as an individual and your relationship with your business, um, and the way that is progressing, and try to stay as on top of the direction as possible, because you're the conductor. At the end of the day, it's a reflection of your idea, your vision, and your identity. And then in terms of tact, is just like you said, pay attention to the pay attention to the growth, observe the analytics in a way that empowers your business decision to move
Yeah.
forward, um, and just stay true to your brand and be consistent. That's something that I'm gonna continue to do. I was reminded of that today. Thank you so much, Miss Tiara. And
You're
that's gonna
welcome.
be it, man. Y'all be great. Have a wonderful
Yeah,
evening, and we will catch y'all in the next episode. God bless.
absolutely. All right.